Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brownstone. I'm your host, Dr. Michele, and you're listening to Numbers Don't Lie. We learn to get out your feelings so you can make the best decisions for yourself, your family, and your business. I'm very excited about this week's episode because I'm talking to a client of mine. We did some cool stuff together, but you get to be like a fly on the wall. So he's one of those people that is a servant leader. But just because you serve, just because you want to do great things for your community, it doesn't mean you have to be broke and poor. Even though he does lead a nonprofit organization, he truly practices what he preaches when it relates to building wealth. So it's not just a do good conversation. It's let's do good and let's build our communities and let's build wealth. So fasten your seatbelts, entrepreneurs. Come on in. If you know entrepreneurs, share this out. Okay. You're going to love this conversation. So, welcome to the Numbers Don't Lie stage, Booker T. Spencer Jr.
Hey, Dr. Josie, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am awesome. I am awesome. Glad to be on this podcast today.
I'm so
Numbers don't
happy.
lie. Wow.
They don't. And
Yep.
I keep hearing it more and more. So I'm like, people get it.
Right. Yep.
So before we get too deep into it, could you tell the listeners a little more about yourself?
Oh, wow. Wow. My name is Booker T. Spencer Jr. I grew up in a town in Texas called Bay City, Texas. A small country town. I'm a PK kid. And most PK kids, we're curious and somewhat challenging, right?
I know how to
So
take that curious.
yeah, we curious. I grew up with the title of being bad. I say I never was bad. I was just curious. I'm one of those,
Mm-hmm.
people like trial and error. I'm that person to do something and then come back and tell you, no, don't do that. so so I relocated. I grew up in Bay City, Texas, had stayed there for some years, and then I relocated to Houston, Texas. I stayed in Houston about 10 years, and then I've been in the DFW market for since 2005. So that's kind of been my
Wow.
history. And I've always served in the community. So my occupation by trade is a barber. So I've been in the
Wow.
community for 23 years.
That.
Yeah, I done got older. When you tell people that that's your occupation, first thing the conversation becomes is like, hey, man, when can you cut my hair? I'm like, man, dude, you know, I'm trying to tell you about, an initiative or a program that I got going on. And then it comes down to, hey, man, can you cut my hair? So that was a certain season in my life. So I say that to say that I've always served in some capacity in the community or church. So, it's just like that servant leader thing. I've always been serving.
Love that. I love that. So you are the executive director of a nonprofit called Bootstrap Entrepreneurs. Y'all see it behind them,
Right, right,
bootstrapentrepreneurs.org.
right, right, right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying?
Yep.
So could you tell us a little more about Bootstrap Entrepreneurs and some of your successes that's come out of that?
Oh wow, bootstrap entrepreneurs. Bootstrap, you know what? Let me, because I'm a PK kid, so I'm gonna start there. Um, I believe that when you have an assignment on your life or your purpose starts with the seed, right? A
Mm-hmm.
challenge that you may be having personally. And so, early on in my entrepreneurship career, I started in entrepreneurship probably about 2000. That's long before internet and all this kind of stuff. I came in when the Y2K was happening and all that kind of stuff. So, most of the information back then, you had to search for it. You either
Mm-hmm.
had to read, go to libraries, go to certain groups, SBA, and all this kind of stuff. So, I started out in entrepreneurship with an idea and a vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have a plan. I knew I had ambition, but I had an idea and an ambition, but not really understanding how entrepreneurship worked. I had a skill, but not knowing the backside of it, the strategies of entrepreneurship. So when I came in entrepreneurship, my first experience with entrepreneurship was I went to a wealth training seminar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I came into entrepreneurship with a big vision, right? But when I came outside of that circle, of wealth training, I noticed in my everyday life that that wealth conversation was not being had. It was more
Mm.
of go get a job, go get an education, get a good job, right? And and I don't knock the people that shared that with me, because what we have to realize, that come from a generation that went through their own challenges, right? So with the move of technology and gaining access to more information, we kind of changed from that industrial age into the technology age, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm right in the midst of that transition. Now, you asked the question, how did I ended up with bootstrap entrepreneurs? Well, I realized something, that if I was going to get if I was going to accomplish the visions that I had, the dreams that I had, and with the limited access to information, one, I was going to have to do this by faith,
Mm-hmm.
and two, I was going to have to put it together myself, right? So from that, I realized that it took almost 5 to 6 years just to put the pieces to the puzzle together. Now, fast
Mm.
forward, what we do with bootstrap entrepreneurs, we teach startup entrepreneurs, because technology is changing so much. What we do
Right.
with bootstrap entrepreneurs, is teach the foundational information to have an entrepreneurial conversation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, if you don't mind, I'll go a little bit deeper into that. What does
Yeah,
that
go
mean?
ahead.
Okay. So, most of the entrepreneurs that we get in our program are people like I was 20 years ago. I had an
Wow.
idea and I had ambition, but I did not understand the entrepreneurship conversation.
That's
Entrepreneurship is
good.
really about communication and a language. It's having a
Mm-hmm.
conversation. So, what we share with most of our startup entrepreneurs, we ask them one question when they come into the program: what are you trying to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The worst answer that you can have is, I'm I don't know yet, right?
Mm.
Because check this out. I'm gonna give you a situation. Okay, I'm gonna give you a situation, and how we try to prepare our startup entrepreneurs about the language of entrepreneurship and the conversation. You could be in the midst. You could be at Starbucks. You could be in the midst of maybe 20 people in the room, and you just happen to run into a multimillionaire, right? And this is your day to get blessed by this multimillionaire, right? Amen. This is your day to get blessed, right? So you're sitting there having coffee, and the multimillionaire asks you, so he hears you talking about entrepreneurship, and he asks the question, so what are you trying to do? Right?
Mm-hmm.
This entrepreneur has a challenge. He done made too much money this year because there's two types of problems: a problem with too much money and a problem with not enough money, right?
Right.
So this entrepreneur that you're talking to has made too much money this year, so he's looking how to diversify and move some of his funds into different ventures, because he has a real passion for startup entrepreneurship. And you say, I don't know.
Mm. Conversation over.
It You have missed your opportunity to communicate what it is that you're trying to do. The next question that they're going to ask you is, how can I help?
Right, right, right. Yeah.
Now, this is where Dr. Josie and your organization come in. You help us with a data-driven narrative
Mm-hmm.
to help us be able to answer those questions, right?
Yes, that's
What are you
good.
trying to do, and how can they help? So when you're talking to a multimillionaire, they're used to having data-driven narratives, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that you need on the front end market research to vet out your idea, to be able to have that conversation. What problem, not just in the nonprofit space, but in the for-profit space, what
Yep.
problem are you trying to solve? Who
Yep.
even cares, right?
Is it a problem?
Yes, is it a problem? Right? So what we help startup entrepreneurs do is gain clarity of what they're trying to do. Is this a viable business model?
That's good.
We try to teach them that you'll hear a whole lot when startup entrepreneurship about, you need a plan, you need a plan, you need a plan, right? You need a business plan, you need a business plan. No, you need a business model. The
Yeah.
business model will create the plan. So we take a different approach. We teach startup entrepreneurs about the 9 components of a business model. So when they have that conversation, yeah, I love
The
the business
business model
model.
canvas.
You know it, you know it, you know it, you know it. So what's so uniquely what's so good about the business model canvas is teaches you the 9 components. So when you come in contact with a Dr. Josie, you know exactly where you are in your business model. So you're not having a cost structure conversation really when you need a customer relations conversation, or
Yeah.
you may need a revenue model, or you just don't even have your value proposition together, you know? So those are some of the things that we work with startup entrepreneurs. And lastly, let me say this. One of the most key one of the most key concepts when working with startup entrepreneurs is knowing what type of startup you're building. Every startup is not the same. You may be in a lifestyle startup. You may be in a small business startup. You may be a scalable startup. So it's getting the language correct on the front end so you can have you can hit your milestones while you're going through that first 3-year learning curve, right? You can expedite your process just by getting the language right.
Did you know that data-driven organizations were 19 times more profitable? 19. You heard me right. Perhaps you're asking, what is data-driven and how do I become one of those organizations? I'm so glad you asked. I want you to go take a quiz. It's a simple, quick quiz to help you assess if you are in fact one of those organizations. Head over to mogulbeginnings.com/data into dollars quiz now. That's mogulbeginnings.com. You can just go to mogulbeginnings.com and it'll show you the Data into Dollars quiz. Take it now. You'll see if you're on your way to 19xing your profitability. You're listening to Numbers Don't Lie on KCCR Cityscape. We hope you're enjoying the tunes and all the jams. Make sure you visit our website over at brownstoneworldwide.com to learn about all things Brownstone. You can check out Brownstone Living Magazine and all the great things that we have on the website, as well as the shop. You just got to head over to the website, brownstoneworldwide.com. No, that was really good because I talk to entrepreneurs every day. I mean, I'm surrounded by them. I'm one myself. And especially those that are in like I'll say the nerdy space, like me, where maybe it's data or tech or something that's that requires a lot of brain power, that's a specialized skill. A lot of times we want to go into business, but we have a hard time having that conversation. I know that's across the board, but it's even tougher for people in my space because it's like, how do I even take all this up here and even package it up into words that someone else can, that they would want to buy what I have. So I love what you're doing. It's critical because if we don't figure out that stuff at the front end, we're gonna keep struggling through. Oh, I'm not making any sales because that's people don't know what you do. They don't know what you're selling. You're not talking to the right people. It's so many layers on top of that. So I'm glad that you're helping with those foundational levels.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
We talk about, there's 2 sides to this. All right. And I'll share with where you are, why you're so important to the whole ecosystem, right? So there's 2 sides. There's a technical and then there's tactical, right? Tactical, how you move, technical, what you do, right? So you are still an entrepreneur, but you're in the business support services. So you're key. I'm the person that's out here, doing the whole business model, but some people may not be in the technical side. They're on the tactical side. That's the perfect marriage, right?
Right. Yeah.
You need both. So I need someone in business support services like yourself to help me with market research because I'm out trying to generate a dollar, not data research.
That's real. And I love that you said that because especially when you're a solopreneur, you have a very small team. it
Right.
is very tempting. Well, sometimes you have to do it all. But
Right.
even as you start growing, it's still very tempting to do it all yourself because
Right.
it's like, well, you think you can save money,
Right.
but chances are it's gonna take you longer to do it. So you
Yep.
wasted a whole bunch of time, or it's not
Right.
gonna be as good. So I'm glad
Right.
that you recognize that, hey, I need some support in these areas because I got you really operate with that CEO mindset. See, this is why you got bootstrap entrepreneurs because you know what you're talking about and you're practicing what you preach. I'm the
Right.
CEO. This is what I do. I'm
Right.
gonna position other people. Go ahead on Booker
Right,
T.
right, right. So now I've always approached. Now you know what? Let me say this to you, Dr. Josie. I was having a conversation. I was pursuing a young man for a board member position,
Mm-hmm.
and yesterday, this is about the data driven story that you've given us. You've helped us to articulate better, right? Working with your organization is just like, man, I'll be like, man, I got my market research. I wish you would. You can verify the facts. This is a chief data scientist. Yeah, but I'm blowing it up. And we pay big money for that. So I love it. So when we sat down and had a conversation, I think now, when we sat down and had a conversation, and he looked at the data-driven narrative that your firm created for us, he was like, "Oh wow, I for a board member coming on
Mm-hmm.
to buy into your mission and your vision, and you don't have this data narrative story, this
That's good.
data-driven story, this story." It makes the person that's getting involved with you skeptical that you really don't know where you're going. You're running a
Mm.
nonprofit. You're asking me of this time. I feel like you're helping me. You wanting me to come in and put this together, but you don't know where you're going, right?
Mm.
So it's so important that you utilize your services to get that narrative together, to have a conversation about where you're going. Now, particularly me personally, I believe in scalable startups. That's where
Mm-hmm.
I'm at. If we can't scale it out in 20 locations, I don't find it interesting. And I'll tell you why, Dr. Joseph. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I believe that everybody needs to have a $1.5 million conversation.
Ooh, come
That's
on.
that's the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know how to pitch a $1.5 million conversation,
That's good.
right? And that's the bar where you need to start. Stop playing with these six-figure numbers. Stop playing with that. Because depending on what room, now, again, the type of startups, scalable startups, right? Scalable startups, they expect to you to have a 1.5 million to 5 million to 7 million to $10 million conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, anything smaller than that, they're going to say to you, that's something you can do by yourself. I don't think
That
we
makes
have,
sense.
it's
Yeah.
we like the idea, Spence, but you know, I think we're gonna have a problem with funding that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
It's
mean, that
not a
makes sense because
yes.
even you can't even really get a mortgage for less than 100,000.
No, no. So if you're going to start, you need to shoot at the $1.5 million level and get comfortable with saying it sounds like this, Dr. Josie. Mr. Spencer, what industry you're in? We're in X, Y, and Z industry. We're looking to have in 5 years, we're looking to build this company to have a certified valuation of 6.5 million with the ability to scale in the next 3 years, right?
Yes.
So you want to have the conversation about where you are, but where are you projected to be in 5 years?
That's
Put that
good.
in the conversation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because by putting that in the conversation, the person that's co-laboring with you that possibly want to fund you says, okay, this person gets it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's good.
Certified valuation of XYZ in 3 years.
That's good. Because it's like you're allowing the person to hear your vision. Like they see, okay, this is not a whim.
Right.
This is not something they're just doing because it's popular.
Right.
This is they have a vision and they're going to see it through. So this seems like you can be taken more seriously. So I understand now. Because before it's just like, oh, I'm just throwing out numbers, or how do I
No.
know? We don't know. Nothing is guaranteed. But what's the vision and what are you doing to bring that vision to light? So I love that.
So you really, we like I say, we teach entrepreneurs not just the look. We got to get out of that stuck conversation of startup,
Yeah.
right? We like to use the technique reverse engineering. Where do you want to be? So you need
Mm-hmm.
to look at starting a company, growing a company, and selling a company.
That's
What
good.
does the exit strategy look like?
That's a conversation that
Yes.
not enough entrepreneurs are having.
No. Because there's no, okay, let me make sure I say this. All right. It's not talked about in our community
Right.
because of what we seen in our community is in our communities is Robert Earl had a chicken shack for the last 20 years. When he died, the chicken shack went away.
Yep.
He didn't have a scale conversation because that chicken shack was never set up to be scaled. It was only set
Right.
up to feed the family.
Yep. That's good. That's good.
Is that making sense?
Mm-hmm.
So characterized by the characterization of a small businesses are businesses that are set up. You see the foreigners do it all the time. They actually choose businesses that are small businesses is only designed to feed the family and put their kids through college.
Mm-hmm.
They said
That's good.
they come into startup entrepreneurship, they come into entrepreneurship with that idea. They choose specific businesses that do XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to our community, it's almost like it's like the data that you prepared for us, right? The whole access to capital for Black and brown people.
Mm-hmm.
With that data that you provided us, the piece that's missing, we are not building businesses to buy assets.
That conversation is so new to a lot of business owners because it was one I literally just heard this more recently, like maybe even this morning, and I even put it in your narrative that business owners are 12 times more
Yep.
wealthier. So
Yep.
it's just like, well, why? Because it's not just that you're generating money, because people can make money every day. Like a lot of times, making money is not hard for a lot of people. You can go make money, you can hustle it, you can do whatever. You can hustle your way to 100,000. You can even hustle your way to 1 million. I know people that they started something, they started at the right time, $1 million. But that doesn't mean you're wealthy. It means you're strategically buying assets. So I love that conversation. Are you having these conversations with your people?
Dr. Josie, hold on. Dr. Josie, it's finna get good. Dr. Josie, um, I'm I'm a little bit older, okay? Not throwing
See
that
it
out there,
then.
but I'm let's just put it out there. Okay, just a little bit older. Listen, Dr. Josie, most CEOs and in upper leadership, people that we read about, they do not have a money conversation. If you say the word money, they're going to shut down
Mm,
because you have just exposed the level of your understanding by using that word.
wow.
You have to use the word capital.
Mm, that's a nugget.
There's money, there's capital, and then there's wealth.
Mm-hmm.
We use the word wealth in a loose term, but here's the business model structure for wealth. Your first company that you're building, what we're teaching people is about the LLC. That's your operating company. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It is not designed for you to become a multimillionaire. It is a business management company. It pays you a salary, it pays expenses, it has a profit, it has those components to it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm gonna kind of roll it out for, if you don't mind, Dr. Joseph, can I?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, you got a little time.
okay, real quick. With that $1.5 million conversation, right? We start the operating company. The goal is to generate 1.5 million in revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you had a profit of this year of 400,000. The operating company is the operating company. The 400,000 goes into your second company, which is the investment company.
Come on. Hold on, let me pause because I think this is a good time for all those entrepreneurs, if you know entrepreneurs,
right.
because Booker T is legit giving you so many bars and gems here. I need you to make sure you share this out. Go to brownstoneworldwide.com/BWTV to make sure people hear this that are in the entrepreneurial space. These are not conversations that are happening
No,
in all
no,
entrepreneurial circles. You may
no,
never meet Booker T again, and you
no.
may never hear a conversation like that for another few years.
Yeah.
Share this out. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the investment company, the second company, is designed to only buy income producing assets.
That's good.
This is the piece about the wealth thing that you're saying, why are blacks being denied access to capital? Is because they don't have a plan for the investment company. Their conversation is only about an operating company making $1 million with their operating company. But once you make $1 million, what are you going to do? All right, the second company is the investment company. The investment company buys income producing assets that your third company, which is the holding company, owns.
That's good.
The third company is your bank. So when the scripture tells us about being the head and not the tail, being the borrower, not being the lender and not the borrower, what does the structure look like? Operating company, investment company, holding company. That's now good. You don't need to go to the bank because the holding company has the assets that you borrow against yourself and pay it back. Company number one borrows from the holding company and pays it back.
Come on. Listen, Booker T.
I'm sorry.
I dropped so much.
Look. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
No. It's good. I just, guys, when we do these, I do my podcast, I never know how it's gonna go. But Booker T, he pretty much answered everything I was gonna ask him. He talked about the power of this data-driven narrative that I delivered to his organization. And I had even had limited thinking about that. I was just thinking about your conversation with lenders and other and stakeholders and partners. But you're like, no, I even showed this to my board members. Like everybody, it goes back to what me and my guest talked about a couple of weeks ago. Everybody needs to be on the same page. This is what we're doing. This is what we're establishing here. This is what we're trying to change. So it's not a me, it's a we. So I love that you're using it. I love that you sprinkled it throughout this conversation and you educated my people at the same time. Because see, you got to tell the people where to find you because they're going to want to know more.
Okay, so I'll tell you where to find me. We're doing a building wealth through entrepreneurship series right now. So this is part of that series. Now, we have an initiative. Bootstrap Entrepreneurs has an initiative right now called the Texas1000project.org. So it's Texas1000project.org. And what we're aiming to do is create a 1,000 new startup entrepreneurs by first quarter 2028. So we got a big vision, big mission. We need your support. We need your help. We need your donation.
I know that's right. Go on over to Texas1000project.org. Connect with Booker T. Spencer Jr. on LinkedIn because you may have more questions or you may want to ask more about his organizations.
Absolutely.
It's so much, y'all. So you definitely got to get a closer conversation and connection with him. And thank you guys for listening in. I'm your host, Dr. Michele. You listen to Numbers Don't Lie on KCCR Cityscape. Thank you guys so much for listening. I know you got something from it. So stay tuned for the next show and then stay tuned until next week for the next Numbers Don't Lie. See you guys.
Mogul Beginnings Data Consulting helps nonprofits and small businesses strategize, optimize, and scale by unleashing the power of their data. So if you're ready for your data to be unleashed to help your business tell beautiful stories, connect today by logging on to mogulbeginnings.com. That's mogulbeginnings.